Hi guys, Mike Fifer with Fifer Hobby again. Such a nice day, I decided to come outside and introduce the new video. I'm going to do one on making Kato Flex Track. I know it sounds impractical, but sometimes there's just a position where you have a couple of turnouts that may not be exactly square with each other, and you just need a slight curve in there. And I'll show you how we can do that, or how we can even make one piece of Flex Track with Kato. So let's go in and make one. Okay guys, here's the things you'll need to make some double track. A razor saw, and I prefer one with really fine teeth. This is an X-Acto 35. Can use any brand. And possibly a tape measure. Probably not necessary. But anyway, let's take a look at what we have here. We have a piece of rigid 9 3/4 inch straight versus a little bit longer piece. What we've got here is the parts in a 091, which is all the small sections that you need to make, fitting and piecing. Some of you guys have used these sets. One way that we did it at the club is we used multiple 1-inch sections in a row, and then of course there's a couple 2-inch sections here. But if you look at these two pieces, you think, well, you've got the same thing. But if you just flex this a little bit, you can see that you can make an angle out of this. Okay? You've got joints in it, but because you have joints in it, you can flex it somewhat. Okay? Now, that's not the optimal thing because you may not want all of those joints. So let's just show you how to duplicate that with this 9-inch piece here. Okay, what we have here is we have these stringers, and we have guidelines to go by, which are these holes in here. You can make cuts at any location you want. If you just want to bend the end, you could make cuts down here. If you want to bend this end, make cuts. If you want to bend the whole piece into some slight radius, you could make a lot of cuts in here. We're going to start by making just a few strategic cuts at the joints here. And we're going to take it nice and easy until we get down to the rail. I'm going to try another one over here. And mind you, you're only cutting just the width of the saw blade. We're going to make one down here. And granted, you wouldn't want to make a whole layout like this, but if you look at this, we have 3 cuts in it that are barely visible to the eye, yet we can bend this slightly, if that makes sense. And the more cuts we make in it, the more bends we can get out of it. So let me make a few more cuts and I'll show you how flexible this can be. Okay guys, during the intermission there, what I did is I went back and made cuts in between the cuts we had initially made, which leaves us with about 1 inch or 1.5 inches in between each one of the cuts. And you'll see here, when I turn this over, that now we've got a piece that's pretty flexible for 9 inches, and for the most part, not very visible by the time you put some ballast along the edge, and barely visible at all in the middle of the track where you normally would see it. I did make one small error though, and I don't know if I can get it on the camera here. Let me see if I can show you. I cut right in the center of where the little holes are here. And when you do that, it takes you to the center of a tie. I would not recommend doing that. I would recommend going in between the little holes somewhere. But they don't have to be accurate cuts to get this kind of flexibility out of a piece of 9-inch. And you can see that we could even make this into a slight S. You know, we can make the, not that you want a bunch of S curves, but if you can't make something line up properly, you could certainly use a couple pieces of this and get this slinky effect here. So, and another thing I might mention too, this could be done with a Dremel tool pretty easily, with a real thin blade and a Dremel tool, carefully. Also, when you're using the saw, I might add, when you get down, you need to hold this really, really tight and push down on it against your surface, because when you get down here, sometimes the saw will snag on the rail here, and I will show you what happens. This was the first piece I was going to show you. It rips the tie plates, and you wind up ruining the piece of 9-inch. It just pulls the little nail heads out. So you got to kind of be gentle. But for the most part, it's pretty easily done here. And you can see what we wind up with. A lot of uses for this, by the way. One last thing I'd like to mention, guys, is don't restrict your this type of thinking or your thinking just to straight track, because we can do the same thing to a curve piece. I don't know what this curve is. Looks like maybe an 11. But you can see that I've done the same thing. I could flex this all along and actually flex even a larger curve, a 28 or whatever. And there's certain circumstances where you need to do that. Also, keep in mind, if you've gone back and looked at my videos on making your own lengths of track, you could do the same thing with this curve. Stop and think here. What I'm just gonna gently break this piece, but I'll show you. This is essentially what I do when I make my own pieces. Say this curve took you too far and you wanted to go out this way, okay? What you do is just come back in here. We've cut these pieces. We're just going to pull them out of the track, okay? We're going to slide the rails together. Now you've got a piece that's only a partial radius. Now you can go that way instead of all the way around this way. So always keep in mind, or keep an open mind, and keep your heads thinking that, there's a lot of stuff I can do with this by just modifying the road base. Just another tip. Oh, by the way, to correct the length of this end, all we would do is, well, here, all I do, use my rail nippers to pull off the joiner, slide the joiner off the track, and I hope you can see this, nip the rails off right here at the end, put the joiner back on, and you're done. These stringers in here, these stiffeners. Well, what I'd first start out by doing, and I'll do it so the camera on the opposite side so the camera can see, is I just line it up with those, and first thing we're going to do is just make a cut. And then we're going to go to the next one down here, and we're going to make a cut. Oops. Well, guys, I hope that answered a couple of questions about creating FlexTrack. I realized that it would require some ballasting of some type along the edge at least, but it's the best we can do with Unitrack, and it does allow more options than what we had before. So I hope you enjoyed it, and it's just another thing you can do with Unitrack. Thanks for watching.